name is Arturo O'Farrill. I'm the artistic director and founder of the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance. We're welcoming you to another edition of our Friday series, La Plaza Fridays at Digital Village. Today our guest is a great pianist, a great composer, a wonderful artist, and most of all a human warrior, a human being that I've known for many years and loved dearly. Please help me to welcome the great Guy Mintus.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. We are here also on the Facebook page of an organization, of an orchestra that I love and care about deeply so much. And this is, of course, the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance, which I will tell a bit more about as we go along. But I want to start by just telling you about the first piece that I played, which, yes, Lon, you have a very sharp ear. It included some Horace Silver in it, which I kind of threw in there for a reason. But the main theme and the main piece is a piece called Sari, and it was written by a person that, thanks to whom I play jazz. It's as simple as that. He was my mentor since I was 13. He took me under his wing, and his name is Amit Golan. And he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. But he's with us, with his students, every single day, in every note. So this is Amit's, this is Amit's presence and influence, so great. And so Amit wrote this beautiful tune called Sari, dedicated to his wife, beautiful Sari. And I chose to start it, first of all, because Amit, as you could hear, was very influenced by Horace Silver and had a lot of Latin elements weaved into Horace's music and also into Amit's music. But the reason I chose to start it today in relation with the Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra and the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance, and with specifically Arturo O'Farrill, who is another mentor of mine that I was lucky to meet when I moved to New York, and I have a lot more to tell you about, and I will elaborate, but not all at once. So back to Amit Golan. Amit was my jazz history teacher in Tel Mayalin High School. And on one of the first classes, Amit played for us, for the class, a piece by a Cuban composer, Cuban who lived in America, called Chico O'Farrill. And that piece was the Afro-Cuban Jazz Suite. And it was just mind-blowing. Some of the most beautiful, most colorful music that, I've ever heard until now, and especially at the time, just starting high school. It was really mind-blowing. And Amit was telling us a lot about Chico O'Farrill and his legacy of, combining all these different styles. And when I moved to New York, I had a huge privilege, first of all, to study in the same class with the grandson of Chico, and that is Adam O'Farrill. Truly, probably my favorite trumpet player right now in the world. Seriously, an incredible trumpet player. You have to hear his music. Adam O'Farrill is Chico's grandson. And later on, I got to meet Arturo, study with Arturo, and even play with Arturo's orchestra, the Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra, which we are now also co-broadcasting with. And so this was an incredible closing of full circle, this musician I learned of in high school, and meeting the legacy and some incredible musicians who are his offsprings, and it all came together. And on this broadcast I decided to start with Amit's piece, Sari, because it really connects the whole thing so beautifully. So I hope you enjoy this one. It was a very tough one, actually. I would like to also invite you, if you're enjoying this, if you're enjoying the broadcast, share it right now. Just go and click share, because then you bring more people to the party, and the more the merrier, right? We'll have some more fun like that. So I really invite you to do this. Now we're going to start our little trip in South America. First, we're going to start in Chile, all right? This is a song by Violeta Parra. It's very well known, and it's called, I'll just tell you, it's called Gracias a la Vida. Thank you to life. Toda l'chaim. And I'm going to start interpreting it, and then we'll go places, all right? So stick along for the ride. Share the stream if you enjoy, or tag a friend that you would like him to watch this with you, and let's go. It's so great to see all of you here. to continue our trip in South America and go from Chile a little bit lower to Argentina. This is also a very well-known song that was written by Ariel Ramirez about a poet, a female poet, who lived at a time where being a feminist and a social rights activist and wasn't easy as a woman, and unfortunately she ended her life, as the legend says, in a suicide, walking into the sea until she was no more. And she was made eternal through this next song. Por la blanda arena que lame el mar, su pequeña huella no vuelve más. Un sendero solo de pena y silencio llegó hasta el agua profunda. Un sendero solo de pena mudas llegó hasta la espuma. ¿Sabes, Dios, qué angustia te acompañó? Qué calores viejos cayó tu voz para recostarte arrullada en el canto de las caracolas marinas. La canción que canta en el fondo oscuro del mar, la caracola. Te vas, Alfonsina, con tu soledad. ¿Qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar? Una voz antigua de viento y de sal que requiebra el alma y te está nevando y te vas hacia allá como un sueño. Dormida, Alfonsina, vestida de Cinco sirenitas te llevarán por caminos de algas y de corral, y fosforescentes caballos marinos harán una ronda a tu lado, y los habitantes del agua van a jugar pronto a tu lado. Bájame la lámpara un poco más, déjame tenerme nodrida en paz. Y si llama a él, no le digas que estoy, dile que Alfonsina no vuelve. Y si llama a él, no le digas nunca que estoy, di que me he ido. Te vas, Alfonsina, con tu soledad. ¿Qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar? Una voz antigua de viento y de sal que requiebra el alma y te está llevando y te vas hacia allá como un sueño. Dormida, Alfonsina, vestida. Man, so good to see you.
I love seeing you, Guy. Every time I spend time with you, I feel encouraged, and I feel like it's okay. It's gonna be all right.
Oh man, It really does go both ways. I mean, really, especially in this period, you know, in this last months, every time like you look on social media and you just see that, wow, okay, there's another Birdland night, okay, there's another masterclass, okay, there's a fundraiser, like supporting, wow, it's all together, and it just like gives you exactly that feeling.
It was a struggle. It was a struggle, I got to tell you, because I didn't want to give the impression that we're celebrating or that we're, you know, that we're dancing or partying, but I realized that musicians play music. We play music. That's our ministry. That's how we respond to the horror of pandemics and political strife and racism, and and it was really hard. It was really hard to decide to do, and very difficult to keep it up, to keep up the regular virtual Birdlands. And every time we do, though, I feel like I am with my tribe, with my people. Every time I close my eyes and record, and I hear Vinny and Bam Bam and Kaisel and Carly, it feels like we're playing in the room right next to each other. And it's, I mean, it freaks me out. It freaks me out because I respond in the same way that I do when I'm playing on stage with them. So it is, for all intents and purposes, a live performance.
Yeah, it is pretty mind-boggling, like how, I mean, of course the first reaction is that, okay, now we are not physically in the same space and we miss playing together, but then it really blows your mind how close can you actually feel, even with being, like, you know, separated physically. And it kind of points on how, like, the togetherness is really first and foremost is like a spiritual, mental thing.
Yeah, because and then it's not
the vibes in the room, but it's before it, that's second, like there's something beyond that, and it is like surprising. Wow.
Well, it's, you know what I feel like it's a lot like when you know someone you love is somewhere else, and that love is not, it's not discontinued. Because, I mean, there are people in my life like you. I can pick up the phone in the middle of a conversation. It's not, hello, Guy, how are you? What's going on? It's like, you can pick up a conversation with someone you love in midstream. And that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to play with these people every single week. It feels like we're just not there physically. But,
and it's a huge statement, like, to see it. It really is a huge statement. Not at all giving, like, the, you know, the false impression of, you know, someone is celebrating or not, you know, like, not affected by what's going on. It's exactly the opposite. Like, it's really like an example of resilience and, like, you know, being strong despite and facing with the huge challenges that we have on so many layers right now in the world.
You know, I think the scripture says man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. And so life is this constant negotiation between the joy and the tears. And that's something that we can never get away from. And so we don't live in the happiness and we don't live in the tears. You know, we're constantly negotiating that space. And I think this is a dark time. This is a scary and horrible time. And when you see, we know we both have, and I wanted to ask you this question. I know we spoke a little bit about this, but the difference between being from a place and being of a place. I'm in the United States right now, you're in Israel, and there's all kinds of horrible things going on in both places. The murder of George Floyd, I still can't watch it. And I know can't bring myself to see the whole thing. I find myself, and yet that is who we are. And that's not who I am. So you can come from a place and be of a place. And this is my home. But I am not, I don't, it's really different because on some level, culturally, we are where we're from. But the actions of the people who govern us are not our actions. So a lot of the pandemic, a lot of the racial strife, a lot of the situations that go on in Israel don't reflect who we are as human beings.
Yeah, it is a very kind of delicate dance and like a tough balance to maintain, because we didn't choose, like I didn't choose to be born in Israel and to have this very, very tough situation going on, so many terrible things going on with basically another nation that is, I mean, the whole story. I didn't choose to be in it, and it hurts me so much. And at the same time, I love my home, I love my country, my people.
Of course.
And, like, feeling both these things is like, it is really, really challenging, and it's very tempting sometimes to kind of log off from certain aspects of it. And it's so important to try as much as we can, like to not log off from them, but like really own them and face them, because like you said, it's not our doing, but we're still somewhat connected to it, or somewhat responsible. Maybe in less direct way, but still in some way. So like really finding that balance is,
I always feel like the way to deal with this stuff is to live in the promise of what your country could be.
Yes.
To live in the promise of what Israel could be, to live in the promise of what the United States could be, and to realize that that promise, as we believe it to be, is one of egalitarianism. It's one of acceptance. It's one of love. But I don't know, we're not exhibiting that right now in the United States. And we are, and yet we are. People are standing up. They're demonstrating, they're marching, they're demanding change. But inwardly, I think that's what I'm getting at, is that inwardly, we have to go inside. We have to go inside to find the true definition of who we are. We can't look at outside of ourselves.
Yeah, that's exactly. I really connect with that, and it reminds me of the sentence in the Judaism that says, if you changed one soul, you changed an entire universe, the whole world, basically. And it really is about, like, because sometimes it's really easy, or again tempting, to kind of tend towards the things that are outside, to do these more outside things, towards what's happening, but less attend to what's inside, and what really we all have to do both. And
well, it's like the old saying, revolution begins with oneself.
Yes.
And it does. It really does.
Yes.
The ability to get in front of yourself and face yourself and change slowly from within, it has to take place before you can start adjusting to the way the world is the way you see the world and the way that you interact with the world. So I get up literally every day and I ask, please, just whoever it is, whoever she is, whoever God is, whatever divine reality that is that there is, if there is one, even if you don't agree that there's one, whatever it is, we have a standard. We have to behave as if we're responsible for one another. And you do that, my brother. You've been doing that ever since I've known you. You've been behaving in a loving and generous fashion ever since I met you.
Man, thank you. I try. And I mean, being an Israeli who travels the world a lot, that's really, I almost feel sometimes like I live for those moments, like, when I was in Morocco, for example, where it's actually where my grandfather was born, or when I was in Turkey, there was one time when I was in Turkey. It's another story that occurred to me, and I was in the streets that's called Istiklal, one of the main streets, and there were like a lot of street musicians playing, and I was listening to one, and a few people were gathering around, and somehow I started a conversation with a younger guy next to me, and we really hit it off. I discovered he plays the violin, all these things, and he was he escaped from Syria to come to Istanbul.
Wow.
And when I told him I was from Israel, he was, so shocked, because his family were escaping from their village in Palestine to go to Syria, and now he had to escape again. So like, imagine like what he's been through, and then he's meeting this person. It was the most unexpected thing for him in the world. And we could really like just talk about some things, and also talk about things not related to that, and just be cool, and a lot of time, even in the delis in Brooklyn, like, you meet the guy who sells you the stuff he's from Yemen, and you tell, oh, you're from Israel, wow. Like, it's just all these moments of like realizing at Manhattan School of Music I ate maybe 3 times a week in a Jordanian restaurant.
Of course. I think I know the restaurant.
You must know it. And these people were like, I was eating their food. What's more than that? When my grandmother came to the graduation recital, she left the place like kissing. They were kissing, because she's from Iraq. So they had...
Well,
like they could speak even, and like whenever I came back, he said, "Where's my girlfriend?" Talking about my grandma. So it's like insane how it all connects, like so beautifully.
I had a friend who was a Sabra, and she's an older woman, and she told me when she was little, she grew up in Tel Aviv, and her best friends were Palestinians. Her best friends were people, and they were taught that they hated each other. They didn't know that. Yeah. They were taught, and if you look at I don't know, if you look at some of the same situations when I travel, the same thing. If I'm in Korea or in Russia, these are our enemies, right? Whatever. And then you talk to these people and you realize that there's no such thing. There's no such thing. In fact, what's really interesting to me is that now more than ever, the pandemic has shown us that we are a global reality. And that if one suffers, we all suffer, because this what became a thing somewhere else. You think it's not going to touch you? And then boom, it lands on your shore. And instead of blaming other people, like some presidents of the United States like to do, instead of blaming other people, what you have to do is you have to understand that we are all subject to the same laws. The global reality is one that we share,
That's probably the biggest lesson of this. Wow. I mean, this goes really, really deep.
Yeah. So that's been in my heart a lot. It's been in my heart about just how do we make a better planet? How do we make a better life?
I was telling you about closing a full circle from Amit Golan, was my first teacher, to meeting Adam O'Farrill and then Arturo O'Farrill and the entire orchestra in New York. And it was a really beautiful moment. And just one other thing about that moment is that the first piece I heard was the Afro-Cuban Jazz Concerto by Chico O'Farrill, the grandfather. If somebody wants to put a link in the comments, that would be great. But then, when I met Arturo, he invited me to play the piano part with the orchestra on the premiere of a new monumental piece that Arturo wrote, which is kind of a conversation with the first piece of his father, Chico, and Arturo's piece was called the Afro Latin Jazz Concerto. And that's an incredible piece as well. If somebody wants to put the link for the Spotify or whatever in the comments, you're that would be great. And I'm just going to show you one photo from that premiere that took place at the legendary, iconic Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York. Check it out. This was so much fun. Really moments I will never forget. And 1 or 2 years later, I had a chance to come back to the Apollo with Arturo and the orchestra with a premiere of another new piece that Arturo wrote for Dr. Cornell West, who is so hard to explain, but he's really one of the most important and most soulful minds and human beings that are fighting for social justice right now in the US and in the entire world. And I really recommend everybody to do some homework and read about him. So really, how lucky am I to have had that chance to experience so much with Arturo and the orchestra. And now, I've been following them from afar, and they've been keeping up such an amazing schedule of online performances of all the orchestra, of educational work. They are raising funds and supporting musicians that are right now in serious trouble because of the COVID-19 situation. And I'm just so in awe and inspired by what they do that we spoke and realized we got to do something to honor the Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra. So Arturo and everyone, Eric and Felipe and Zach and Adam, if you guys are hearing this, know that I love you and I respect you so much, and just keep on doing what you do. And I invite everybody who's watching now to follow them later and check out what they're doing, because it really is quite amazing. Fantastic. Okay, now we're going to continue our trip. Let's see where we go. I think this would be a good time to come up from Argentina to Brazil. What do you think? Brazil, are you guys down with that? Janet, I see you over at the Afro Latin page. That's really cool. All right, I think we can do some Brazilian. Any Brazilian music lovers in the house? Write a comment. In general, write where you're watching from. I'm always so curious. I'm always discovering people watching from all kinds of places. Hey, Rafael, what's up, my man? All right. Yes. So we're going to Brazil. This one by Caetano Veloso, the amazing Caetano Veloso. It's called Menino do Rio. All right. Hope you enjoy this one. I heard this one the first time in Rio de Janeiro, and I fell in love with the song. I hope you enjoy.
And I know that I know when you came to my class at UCLA, man, I watched my kids respond to you. I watched my students respond to your music, and I realized that the music is a conduit for love and forgiveness, for bridging all kinds of, what a, strange, that's a really cool class. I have kids from Mexico, I have kids from the Middle East, I have kids who are Black, kids who are white, and then you come and you bless them. You give them permission to understand that music is the fabric that brings us together.
That was an experience that I really cherish. That was such a special moment and a special energy that was already in that class. I mean, it wasn't by chance. When when you're leading it, it's very natural that it felt like so open and like ready to embrace. And like when I felt that, it brought out of me things like, when I played in the class, I really did like feel something. It wasn't, it was a very unique moment. Like, I'm sure those moments when you play and you're like really, there weren't that many people there, but just the energy of those who were there, each and every one was so intense, and you just felt uplifted by them. So that's something really strong that I don't know if I ever shared, but like really it was just so uplifting for me just to be there and play for them. And like there was like you're having a conversation with someone that is really, really
I don't think I had a chance to talk to you since then, but one of the comments that I got a lot of from the students was that somehow you weren't performing for them, you weren't playing for them, you were singing for them, and you were singing with them. I got that a lot. That you were not there to be you were there to participate. You were there to lead them in song. And I think that I think that's a part of what you do. Is you not just a pianist, you're a composer, you're a singer, you're a whistler. You're an amalgamation of many places and many people, and and my students gravitated to you in such a beautiful way because you beckoned them in. You basically come in.
Man, that's so beautiful to hear. Yeah, no, really, it is something that I'm trying to do, because it makes like a different connection, like when you're really being drawn off, the people, like the music is not, it's a two-way street always. And now in the new era with the new live show that I've been doing in the studio and the broadcast, it's been like a completely new exploration of exactly that. Like how can this two-way street happen now?
I love reading your mother's comments about your show. She's so proud of you, man. So am I. I mean, it's so beautiful what your show has become.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. It's a beautiful. And last week you thrown in some Horace Silver, some Nika's Dream, some. I swear, sometimes I think you're throwing in some Horace Parlin. This is like it's like it's just taking.
It was really beautiful because like the first song was composed by like my first mentor in jazz, who introduced me to the music of Arturo O'Farrill. Yeah. And his son was watching. He's not with us anymore, but his son was watching, and his son was playing the double bass for a while, but then he doesn't play as much anymore, and he just went like full on crazy to what level he reached in like Cuban dancing. Out of all dances, out of like really professional, studying it as seriously as you can imagine. Like here in Israel, there's like a whole scene of that,
Oh yeah.
which I discovered through him, and it's like so beautiful how it closed the full circle. Like,
No, there's a unique spiritual connection between the Israeli people and the Cuban people. Do you know Shavit Prince? Do you know Shavit?
a little bit, yes, yes, yes. I met
Shavit,
actually through
she's
one of
she's 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 based her whole performance art around Yoruban chants,
Wow.
but she uses Hebrew and Israeli folk, and it's beautiful because it just works perfectly. It's like the spirituality comes from such far and ancient places. Do you know what I mean? The spirituality is so far and so ancient, and it's Africa, Israel, Cuba, the diaspora. And there's some people who understand that. There's some people who get that really, really, really well.
Yeah, I have to discover more of that. That you made
Me
me
too.
real curious now. Wow.
Me too. Me too.
Wow, wow, wow. I'm gonna do a quick version of this song. Okay, this is not an Afro-American song or Afro-Latin song or Latin American song at all, but it's somewhat related, and you'll see what I mean in a second. This song is called Adio Querida, and it is a Ladino song, a language that was developed by the Jewish people who lived in Spain 500 years ago, and they kept their language and their heritage. And I'm going to take this song and give it quite a twist, a little bit of a twisty version, here especially for the show, in honor of the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance, and in honor of each and every one of you watching this. It's a little meeting point between the Jewish culture of ancient Spain into the culture of now, 2020. Wow, what a year. All right, let's see what happens. Tu madre cuando te parió y te cuitó al mundo, corazón ella no te dio para más segundo. Corazón ella no te dio para más segundo. Adiós, adiós, querida, no quiero la vida, me la amargaste tú. Adiós, adiós, querida, no quiero la vida, me la amargaste tú. Búscate otro amor, ajarba otras puertas, espero otro ardor, que para mí sos muerta. Espero otro ardor, que para mí sos muerta. All right. Woo. Yeah, so that was Adiós Querida Ladino in the Cuban-inspired version. Yeah.
So yeah, I love your shows. I love that show. And it was just lovely to hear you perform.
I love you, man. I love everything ALJA has been doing. It's just so inspiring. Like in the first 2 weeks, of the situation, I was really a little bit lost in terms of what now, and like seeing what you guys were doing right away. Like you didn't waste any. Like it was like you just went into it, and that was really something that gave me a lot of inspiration and power, like a permission, to just go for it. And that's a spirit that was really needed at those crucial first moments.
Well, as you know, both of my sons were musicians, and they're both at the beginning of the journey, and all of a sudden, and everything. You know what I mean? So I didn't have time. I mean, because when you're 25 or 29 or whatever, and something like this comes along, it's scary, it's confusing, it's horrifying, and something in me just kicked in. It just kicked in, and I just went, I got to get busy. I got to get busy. We need to do something right away. And so right away, yeah, you're right. A week in, I started the fund. A week in, we started Virtual Birdland. A week in, we started changing our format, so we had a virtual digital presence. I mean, a week in, we started changing our education so that it was online, and so that it was, freely offered to people. I mean, right off the bat, we just went into overdrive, because I know what it is to be scared. I know what it is to be frightened about how you're going to make a living, and how you're going to.
That you made such a huge impact, like seriously, in directly and indirectly, just by seeing that. Like I can really say personally, it was very, very significant for me. Like to see that, like it's something to look up to. Wow, like it was not just like, okay, a live broadcast here and there. It was like a program. It was like taking the activity on different aspects of 360 degrees now into this is like, okay, so I want to think about idea. Like it really was incredible.
Well, you took the idea and you're running with it, man. You're running with it so beautiful, which is
Inspired
what
me.
you've done. You've done with everything. You take and you run and you go farther than I could ever go. So I'm grateful.
But before that, we got one more country to cover, and that's gonna be Mexico. Hola, Mexico. So I think it's also a good moment, if you don't mind. You had a birthday yesterday, and it's not just a birthday. It's a birthday of a round number, and it's really was just so overwhelming for me to find out, like, it's beyond. So I just want to tell you now that I love you so much, and
I love
we are
you.
all so blessed and lucky, to have you around, as a spiritual leader and guidance, and just your presence and your
Wow.
intent. Your intention is making the whole difference, and it's been
I'd like to, yeah,
for me for a
I'd li-
while.
I'd like to own up to that, but I think it's just what we all do. We all do it differently, but those of us who have a heart and a conscience, we all respond the same way. And I'm glad you think, and I'm glad you think I'm not really someone who wants to think of themselves as special, especially because the number you quoted is very large. And so I'm just going to say, you know what a quinceañera is?
Quinceañera, no.
A quinceañera is when a young Latina reaches the age of 15, they throw her a big party, and they have like the whole thing with the food and the drink and the relatives. And so I'd like to, instead of thinking of myself as 60, I'd like to think of myself as having gone through 4 quinceañeras.
I love it. Oh man, I love it. Oh,
You
that's
know.
so great.
But I'm still here, and I'm grateful.
Oh yeah, we are grateful. And I want to play for you a tiny little thing of a piece that I know you love. So I want to just do a little tiny thing in
Thank you.
honor of you, dear Arturo.
Thank you, God.
Go.
Thank you, God. That's so beautiful. Thank you for letting me be on your show, man. I love you, man.
Oh no. Thank you. Thank you. This is really
That's a
a
beautiful
blessing. I
piece.
just miss you to have a conversation and just go off like that is really just a privilege. It's fun.
Well, we will sit soon. We will sit very soon and spend
I
time
can't
together
wait.
again. And you know what we still have to do? It's the 2-piano record.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad this is recorded.
Oh, I'm gonna,
Wow.
we're gonna do it, man.
Oh my
We're gonna
God.
have a
This
lot of
would
fun.
be a dream. Absolutely. Wow.
All right, thank you, brother.
Love you so much, Arturo.
Love you, man. We'll talk soon.
Love to
Okay.
all the family.
Of course.